Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tierlist Thursday. As we have another category of WARNO stuff to go over. This time we're going into helicopters. And yeah, let me know down below what you want to see in the future for tier lists. I have ideas for maps. Divisions obviously will come with the next patch, as explained. Other unit categories. Uh, Maybe even players at some point. But yeah, let me know down below what kind of tier list you want to see in the future, and also consider leaving a subscription if you enjoy the content here, and a like on the way out as well. And yeah, let's go over the helicopter playlists to explain. These are all the helicopters found in the helicopter tab, so no transport helicopters here. So yeah, no Lynx rocket transports and stuff like that. Those will come at a different point with transport tier list or something like that. And yeah, for now we're gonna go into this, starting up top here with the ATAS as our first helicopter. And that is a okay helicopter. In my eyes, the weakest of the Cobras, because you usually don't want to use it too much in the air-to-air role. Other air-to-air helicopters can usually kill it somewhat reliable as well. So in that fight, it's not that great, and fighters one-shot run it down it as well. So, and it's not that strong against ground units as the other ones, the other Cobras. So that's why I would put it into B tier. It's still a Cobra, still 2 availability, relatively cheap, and it's only gonna be a buff for the rest of these guys. So next one is the Cyanide, and that is a A tier one. It has a lot of damage potential. It also costs a bit more, and the TOW2 is a relatively slow ATGM for a helicopter, and also not full range. So that holds it back a bit from away from S tier in my eyes, but it's still a really solid helicopter here. And yeah, it does its job really well. One of the most efficient stuff that you can get in the helicopter tab. The normal Cobra, that is currently an S tier helicopter. We see it a lot. It can delete infantry quite efficiently. It is pretty cheap, and it does all that really, really well. Because it can fire on infantry quite quickly. It can kill off openers pretty efficiently and hunt down enemy infantry. The rocket's not that great against any light vehicles on the move, especially. Hopefully that will change in the future in some sort. Helicopters in general could use a bit of improvements, but still, Cobra here. Pretty solid unit nonetheless. Heavy Hawk being another one, and that is on a similar level. Doesn't quite have the same sustain, but its rockets hit harder at first, and it's also really cheap to resupply. For some reason, these things are basically coming in for free. So this thing really profiting off that. So another S tier helicopter here, and the TOW Cobra goes up here as well. TOW Cobra currently really solid as well, and yeah, the Cyanide is strong, but it has the extra price, and it gets run down by a lot of fighters a bit more efficiently than the Cobras do, and that's like the biggest threat here, whilst it's not doing its role much more efficient than the others. So yeah, the others being more cost efficient there is a big thing. So yeah, Cobra family, a really, really strong start here into this tier list. Let's move on to a unit that I don't count as high, and that is the normal little bird. That, in my eyes, is currently a relatively failed unit. It doesn't really have much damage. It can't really duel with infantry even with its 4 hit points, because it does not have any survivability, and at 55 points, that's quite expensive. Its rockets run out too quickly to really kill anything, and that's why I would put it into D tier. Its brethren, the little bird with the gun, I would put into C tier here, the AH-6G, because that gun at least can give it some sustained killing power, can help out against vehicles and so on as well. So that chain gun really makes it a good bit better, even though the 20-point jump is quite high, but it actually can kill something, and that makes it viable in some situations, though I'm still not the biggest fan of it. Then we come to the Apache. The standard one, is another A tier unit here that thing, S tier unit. That thing is just fantastic. Rockets that can kill stuff, a gun that can kill stuff, and ATGMs that can kill everything. So yeah, another S tier helicopter here. With the ATAS following it up there, lacking the rockets, but the air-to-air missiles can be quite handy against enemy helicopters. It wins against most AA helicopters on the other side, like especially the Heinz can't two-shot it. So that is a good thing. It has fantastic stingers there as well. Can even damage some planes. And yeah, still has the ATGMs to really bully enemies as well. So yeah, S tier here for this. And then we come to the Apaches that I would count as A tier here with the ATGM one, lacking the rockets, lacking the infantry killing power that that this Apache brings, and lacking the survivability that the ATAS brings, the flexibility that it has. So yeah, you don't use those ATGMs of that often. It can be helpful sometimes. I have seen scenarios where you actually fire more than 8 missiles, and then that can come in handy. But yeah, not as good as the others, so usually you take normal Apache over the ATGM if you can. National Guard Apache gets held back by its disheartened trait quite a bit as well. Gets stunned super quickly, has the aim time, malice, and all that that comes with, and is not that much cheaper in comparison to the efficiency. So still an Apache, but a good bit weaker. And then the Apache Rocket, for its current price, I would only rate into B tier. Still can kill a lot of stuff, but it doesn't have the long range threat that the other Apaches bring. It still has decent survivability, still has rockets that can kill off infantry quite quickly. Like, it still demolishes infantry really well, but that for 200 points is not really what you want out of a helicopter. 200 points is a lot, and 1 availability is a lot to pay. If it would be going up to 2 availability maybe again, then would be some play there. Yeah, or if a helicopter, the turning thing gets fixed or something, but currently not so high on these guys. And that brings us to the next helicopter, that being the BO, the BO 105, the German little small helicopters that can go around and kill stuff. And they have good missiles. The PA one with the hot one, good damage with 22, penetration, accuracy not that great, so I still would only rate it in B tier at the moment. But it is a helpful helicopter. It can come in really well in a lot of scenarios for 55 points, locking down enemy movement, and especially good against IVs and APC pushes there. And the BO 105 PA 1A1 is actually then also capable of killing the heavier tanks with 24 with the hot 2. And that for 65 points is really good. It is a fantastic defensive tool. Both of these helicopters are. The BO 105 here does it well. This thing does it really good. So that's why I would put them here. Gazelle cannon. On the other side though, that thing doesn't do anything anymore. It dies to a lot of units whilst trying to go into a gunfight with them. It costs you 50 points at more than a couple of IVs out there. And it doesn't come in great availability anymore. Like, there's nothing really that you can do with this thing anymore. You can maybe hunt down some infantry units, but that for 50 points is not really that efficient anymore either. So, and you die to anything sneezing at you. So similar to the little bird, the Gazelle cannon just is not viable at the moment at all in my eyes. I feel like it should go down to 40 or 35 points. 40 points, I think it would start to become interesting again. At 50 points, it's just not relevant at all. Gazelle Hot is basically the same as the BO 105. Both have the same missiles. The Gazelle Hot has less. It is a bit faster though. So yeah, it's a bit of a trade-off here between these two in that regard. So yeah, I would put it slightly behind because the extra missiles can be helpful. And same goes for the Hot 2 here. Great, but and a bit faster than the BO 105, but the 2 extra missiles, not having to worry about the reload there is quite helpful. So I would put the BO 105 here in front. Then we come to the Gazelle rocket. That thing for 20 points, and that's the difference here, is still really cheap, and you can get a lot of them quite quickly, like less than half the price of the Gazelle cannon. And yes, it doesn't have the long damage output, the maximum damage output of the Gazelle cannon is higher, but the burst damage is higher, and you have a bit more range even with the rockets. So you can get in there with the burst damage, go back and reload, and that makes them quite gnarly. And we still see quite a bit of play with them, and so I think they are pretty good A tier units. They don't really win you games outright, but they can be a nuisance that helps you getting there. So I would put them here into A tier. Yeah, let's move on to the next thing. That is the Ka-50 Akula AA. And that is a good B tier unit. The Akula is a solid platform, good gun, so not on a turret. And the AA missiles are helpful. It's just a bit pricey. And the missiles only having 4 damage means that it can't two-shot the important helicopter, can't two-shot planes. So, yeah, the Akula here, a bit lacking in that regard. What's paying that extra price and making it with that, like the threshold is around like 130, 120 points, where gun running them down with fighters starts to become somewhat efficient, and the Aquila is above that, so it still has to be worried about those cheap fighters running it down, and that's why I would put it into B tier here. And the Ka-50 Aquila AT on the other side, that's a fantastic helicopter. That's another S tier unit. Would put it a bit behind the Apache, even though its missile is the price just puts it here slightly behind. 260 points is a bit more, and the turret, the gun not being on a turret makes it a bit worse in that regard. So yeah, the Vicar being super fast and so on doesn't really change that. So yeah, I would kind of like to see it maybe even going down a bit of price, even though it's a fantastic helicopter. But yeah, that is what it is for these guys. Brings us to the Lynx Helarm. And I'm not a big fan of this thing. It just can't kill enough stuff. It's only 50 points, but 16 damage. The toe is not that great. So I would only put that into C tier. The 16 damage means that it even can't one-hit the IFVs, and that's a problem. Like, if it would be 17 damage, it could hit quite a couple of them, one-hit quite a lot of them. If it would be 18, it would be absolutely fine. 16 is a problem, especially if your accuracy is not quite up there. So yeah, Lynx Helarm going in there. The Lynx AH7 Helarm on the other side with the Ito. That's a different story. That's 20 damage, that's 60% accuracy, and the Lynx as a platform is fantastic. It is fast, it has 6 hit points, so it survives a man-pad shot, and yeah, the speed is super nice, so that is around here. It has the same amount of missiles as the others, but yeah, it can survive a hit. It is faster, and it has more missiles, less penetration, but I think the Helarm is still the best out of these defensive helicopters that can just fly around quickly, come around and block the enemy off, even though it has even weaker missiles than the Gazelle hot with the hot ones here. Damage-wise, the accuracy also plays a role there, and yeah, if you hit APCs and IFVs, it doesn't matter if you have 22 or 20 AP, you will one-shot them anyway. Lynx Veto, I feel like it's a bit too pricey for what it does, and the top attack is not really getting that much lethality compared to the others. Yeah, so C tier, it can one-hit a good amount of units, but you don't get that many of these guys, and yeah, that damage output is still meaning that you will, against a couple of units, need more hits than you want, and so I think C tier here is fine. It's a solid unit for some situations, but just a bit too pricey, and yeah, not doing the job there. Then we have the Deb, which brings a lot of soft attack, and I would rate that as a B tier unit. It has a lot of firepower, it has some ECM, it only has 8 hit points, so it dies to double hit E-Glass and stuff. That's a bit of an issue. Fighters also can gun it down, and with 150 it's slightly above the threshold that I feel like is the thing where you want to be there. And yeah, it only can hit light vehicles and infantry as well, so yeah, not super versatile, but you get 2 per card, and it does that role really well. So yeah, that's why I put it here in B tier. Not amazing, but far from terrible as well. And now we come into the category where we'll have to look on all the unit stats again, because We have a lot of MI8s ahead of us. The goof MI8s being the first thing here. Those are the ones with the guns. The Soviet one with some 30mm pods. The grenade launcher pods as well, both having decent amount of rockets as well. 110 points. In general, not a big fan of Mi-8s at the moment. I think the Soviet one is slightly better than the East German one, but both of them just don't really get the kills. 110 points is not that expensive, but these things don't have ECM. These things are not fast. Mi-8s, they get still gunned down quite quickly, and yeah, they don't have that much to offer. So C tiers is for these guys. Yeah, now we come to the East German Mi-24Ds, the AA variant going in first, which you don't really buy for the AA, you more buy it for the rockets, and that part of it is pretty decent. Like, it gets 40, 80mm rockets, and yeah, the AA missile, actually more of an afterthought. Good trooper card, 10 hit points, armored helicopter with decent amount of rockets, gets it up into 80 in my eyes. The true availability on these things is quite nice. Just have to consider where to put them. I think we put them behind the Apache here. Yeah, good AT helicopter. Same goes for its AT variants that both have rockets as well. Both have the terrible Falanga ATGM, but you really play all of these helicopters more for being cheap, quick, and high hit points rocket helicopters. So yeah, they are their gun is not as good as the Cobra. That's why I think the Cobra is still better, even though these guys have more hit points. But they do their job still really well, as just being pretty much the East German equivalent to how you play the Cobra. And yeah, Mi-24Ds, fantastic little helicopters. And the only Mi-24s with 2 availability, that makes them quite unique and a bit better than these guys. Okay, so yeah, let's go on with the Mi-24 PAA, which is for Soviets only. And that thing, yeah, having R-60s, not that amazing in that regard. Having good guns, having good rockets, 170 points, quite expensive. The R-60Ms, like, yeah, only 4 damage still. That's the issue of these things. You get 4 of them on these and all of that, but the price is a bit of an issue. So I think they are like low B tier helicopters. I really don't like the price on these. The Cocon version with the 30mm and the rockets, that is a high B tier unit. Would put it around here. The Cocon is a decent ATGM, 80mm rockets doing a decent job, so they can gun down stuff and kill stuff. AA, I don't really feel with these things. The East German ATs, they have the similar loadout, so they go into a similar spot here. I moved the East German one before. The 82 of the East Germans, not really much difference outside of that it has more ATGMs and a bit less rockets, which I feel like for these things having more rockets is actually nicer, so I would put it a bit lower. But the Cocons, yeah, it doesn't really play much overall. The gun is a bit annoying to use sometimes, but if you get it on target, it does good damage, so a bit of a trade-off. Issue with these things is just that they are a bit too pricey. That's why they're not 8 here. So yeah, that's why I would put these guys here in 8 here though, because they're a bit cheaper, and they have E-glass with higher accuracy than the R-60s, and they actually can kill off enemy Cobras quite efficiently. That's a good job of the Mi-24V, and they can come in with decent amount of rockets as well. Their gun is okay, Yak-B, so yeah, that's okay. No ECM on these things. The piece having 10% ECM, but that's not really worth the price here. Same with the DAB. So yeah, that's why I would put them where they are. The VAT, that's another one with Cocons, and this one with the big rockets next to it. No, with the small rockets, but more. And then the big rockets on the rocket, both having the same, having cocoons. This one having 8, this one having 4. I like the rocket one a bit more, similar to how it works out here. But the AT one is still a fine thing as well. It's costing 10 points more though. So yeah, I would put it in the end of A tier here. Good helicopters, absolutely reliable. Not amazing though. And then we come to the Mi-24 VP, which has 20 ECM, 16 cocoons, but it's also really expensive. And that's kind of killing it for me most of the times. Like that it just costs you 215 points, while it's not having a HGM that can outright murder stuff. And having 16 of them cocoons, yeah, it means you can't spam out a lot of them, but it's still not gonna kill tanks that easily with the 19 pen, at least not the heavy tanks. So paying 215 so that the trade with most planes is favorable for the planes, both in availability and price, is a bit tough. 20 ECM helps out with that. That's why it's not C tier, but it's a B tier only unit. Now, the Mi-2 Yearn, and that thing is actually quite solid because it has a decent amount of rockets and a decent amount of guns, and it basically combines the little bird and the Gazelle, and that's actually a decent combo at that point then somehow. Yeah, for only 10 points more than the Gazelle cannon, it actually gets a decent amount of rockets and puts it closer to the Gazelle rocket there, and that makes it a decent, I would even put it A tier kind of helicopter here, because they can hold off against infantries quite nicely and force the enemy to get a plane out quite often. And then they try to run it down, and then you can shoot it down, and yeah, it can protect in the early game. Like, it's a really good support little helicopter that can help out in the start of the game with those rockets softening up for your infantry with 6. And yeah, that's why I would put the Yearn over there into A tier. Then we come to the Mi-8 MT Escorty. I still think it's too pricey. I still think it's a low C tier unit at the moment. The AA missile is not that great, and it's just too pricey in what it does. And then we come to a lot of Mi-8 MTs. The first one with the 57mm rockets. They're pretty pricey to reload, and it only has a few of them. So yeah, those I would put into C tier both as well in front of the Escorty. And this one has a couple more rockets for 10 points. Oh, it has like double the rockets for 10 points. I think this one here is a bit better, which has the bigger rockets that are cheaper to reload and have a bit more of an instant impact. So I would put that a bit higher. And then we have the ones with the 23mm gun pots for these Germans and some big rockets as well. That is around the same place. It's still a Mi-8, so it's still not great. And then we have one with Malyutka ATGMs, which are terrible. It's still relatively cheap. Still has a couple of rockets, though it's the expensive to reload ones. And it has an MG, but that MG is basically 0 impact. So yeah, I still would rate this around in C tier here. This one goes over here. This one they are the same as the Soviets here, basically. So they are all not that amazing. And then we have the Puma Pirat, which has 6 hit points and 10 ECM, so it survives something. So it's better than the Gazelle Cannon by a long shot. It has to turn weirdly though, so I still think it's currently only a C tier unit because of that turning before it can shoot. Yeah, it can do some stuff. It's still not great at it. The damage of those Jihad airbound autocannons not that great either. So yeah, the Puma Pirat is C tier unit only as well. And that is the end of the tier list. So let me know what you think of it. I really think that the Cobras currently are quite strong. Apache is still pretty key as well. The Soviets have some good helicopters as well. I really like the NATO HGM helicopters as well. I feel like the Mi-8 still in some way need some love, maybe a bit cheaper, making you that feel, giving you that feel of the Soviet Helospam, or maybe something else. Like they can transport infantry, but that's not really helpful. I'm not quite sure what to do there. Maybe it's just the supply cost, maybe even. Yeah, it's tough at the moment to really put the finger on what exactly should be changed, but I feel like they need some changes. And then the two down here in D tier, just don't use them. They are absolute bait at the moment. I hope they get buffed at some point in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope to see you next time. Bye bye, and have a great day.